Okay, on site at Dyno and doing an initial look at what we've got. Sensor box, computer's been set up, it's sitting on this table. We have the front roll set here, and we have pallets with tops here. Looks like all the wood stuff probably, and those cables and other assorted paraphernalia. Looks like that one's been unboxed. All the rails, calibration arm, rear roll set, everything bolted to the pallet. And over here is the eddy current cube. Looks like it made it without any damage. So I'm going to take the plastic off of these things and probably make them ready for dropping into the pit for tomorrow. Let's walk out here and look at the pit real quick. So here's the pit. Looks like they do have weld plates in the ground, so perhaps they'll be able to weld the rails down if they're in the right spot. They've got a ridge around the edge for welding. Got some interesting location for their tie-down straps. Any vehicles with overhang may be an issue. Nothing up here in the front. And the location of that hole may be a problem. The 3-inch conduit over there comes out over on the wall, and that could be a problem. I mean, they're 25 foot of cable for the umbilical cord to bring it into the middle of this pit, run it up there, nicely run it all the way over there, come out of that conduit. You're not going to have any cable left for the sensor box. Looks like he's got a box full of shims. That's probably good. Exhaust system. Not sure, but I guess all that's air handler up there, and I guess it's going to be functional enough to blow air at the vehicle. Not too sure about that. Looks like we've got plenty of power stuff here. Conduit. My guess is this is the 3-inch conduit that's coming into there. I don't see any other. Looks like we got air. It's possible, though, that 3-inch conduit is coming out up here. If it's coming out up here, then they're totally screwed, because there's no way that that's going to reach. 1, 2, 3 plastic ones. That's very, very possible, given that that metal one down at the bottom there, sticking out, probably goes over to that metal one. It's very possible that the conduit that they have is running over to there. If that's the case, then we will never have enough cable with the 25-foot one that's been shipped. Okay, the rigging crews come, and they've moved the 2 roll sets out of the area. We have the covers. These covers go to the back roll, and these covers go to the front roll. They're going to come in here and get the eddy current next. So they're getting it ready to put it into the staging area out here for the pit. Okay, so we have the trucks out here and 2 big forklifts so they can move things around. We got the 2 dynos over here. Got them staged. See, we have the covers off. We have the side stops in, and on the rear roll set we have the back stops and the side stops in place. One area of concern is the pipe sticking out here. That's for the sump, and then the air line and that piece of conduit sticking out there, those are probably going to have to be cut off. Okay, riggers at work. Looking, oh yeah, it looks good. That's a pretty solid rail. Okay, so here's an issue. First of all, not sure why we're putting all these weld plates in the back area of the pit. There's nothing we're going to weld to them. So the drawing that shows all those weld plates needs to be corrected. And those weld plates are spaced at 24 inches on the drawing, and there's really not anything that we're going to use them for. So these front weld plates, these are 31 inches apart on the drawing. And those would be where your V-rails sit. The spacing on the V-rails up there on the dyno, where they are, that's only 29 inches. So we need to address that to make sure that we've got everything positioned in the right spot for welding the front V-rails down in the dyno pit. Okay, I think we're going to get lucky with our V-rails. They're just going to catch the edge of those weld pads, and you can see now they're bringing in the dyno. They've got it. You're going to catch the edge.
Yeah, but you got to turn that way.
Don't try this at home, folks.
Doing it pretty soon.
He's got more than you've got. He's got about 4 inches. There, you're about equal now. About 15 inches from the back wall initially, and then we'll position it. Guys are pretty good.
Are the wheels lowered down already?
Yeah, they're already bolted in place. They don't lower down. They're just where they are. Yeah, let's wait till he gets it more further down. That thing drops, that would be bad. I know, you guys are good.
And then we'll cheat it this way some more. And then we can pick it up again. And goes to 16 inches. No, that's
all right.
They're not in line.
All right. Well, I stop about right there. Okay, so if this can only go to 15 inches, then we don't want it to fall off the rail. So whatever amount is sticking out, so push it into, yeah. Yeah. For now, that'll work. Just set it for now, and we'll see what happens. But I think we'll end up pushing it that way probably a little bit. Okay. 15 inches. How much you got sticking out over there? Not a lot at all. Yeah, go 15 3/4. Little bit. Hold on. Good. So now, what I would do is I would push those back to where they're flush.
Okay, so 15.
Yeah.
You have about an inch or so.
Leave them stick out about a ½ inch.
How's that?
Line the cracks a lot. Dan, do I need to keep my end one way or another? This one? Yeah. Yeah, well, are we in the middle? Let's sit in this. All right. You running it? You want us up to the step? Go ahead. Yeah, build it. About a ½ inch. Okay, that's what I got.
Is the machine, are you having problems with the machine pad? Just take the machine pad off. We're not going to use it anyway.
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fucking strap. Never mind. All right, take this off. So you said I can take this off, right?
Well, you're...
Actually, it's not even hitting right here. This is good.
All right.
That's not even hitting. Yeah, he looks good, Peter.
This one's lined up.
That one's lined up, right?
Yeah.
And what it is, it's a software that it might come down on whenever it comes down. I don't want that bitch to catch. See what I'm talking about?
Oh, your soft strap.
All right.
Yeah, your straps.
Yeah.
Back there. Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
You're on this one.
I'm not on this one, so. This one's not down.
We're sitting on the pad. We're sitting on the pad. We need to raise these pads because you're sitting on that one too.
Hey,
So
Peter.
all these front pads need to be raised.
He's sitting on the bed.
All right, it looks like the weld plates are going to work out. We're going to be able to catch just the edge of them. So we got a little bit of luck today. These weld plates back here, I have no idea why they're even here. Makes no sense. Okay, the machine mount feet were down a little bit, so that's causing us an issue with getting it to set on the V-rails. So they're working on that. Probably should have did that before we put it in the pit. Make a note for doing that the next time. Okay, so from this angle you can see that we got just enough to where we can hit the weld plates. So we kind of got lucky on that. But they're trying to square up the dyno right now, so it's square in the pit, and I think the back end has to come over to the right here just a 1/4 inch, and they're going to square that up, and then we'll square up those rails, and then we're going to weld them. So the back side, we know the platform back here cannot allow the dyno to come any closer than 15 3/4 inches. So we've got these back rails placed right at about 15 3/4, maybe 16 from the wall, so that when this comes back, it can't roll off the casters, and then that gives us the full length in the front. So it's a matter of just getting everything moved out of the way so they can weld it, and then we'll pull the straps out of there. We're leaving them in there for now just in case we got to lift this thing. Okay.
So what's that, Bob? After that?
Wow. We are just flush to floor height. You look here and this edge here. So, I mean, we're actually maybe 1/8 of an inch above that, but that's probably all right because that way it'll glide on here. Sometimes we run into issues with the panels and these weld areas being in the way for the panel to slide, but I think we're going to be okay here. So and this side here, yeah. So yeah, pretty sure the plates are just going to slide here, and hopefully these welds are not going to be in the way. So. Okay, you can see we got lucky, and we're going to be able to weld to the weld plates. So they're getting ready to do that. They have the dyno all squared up, and they just got to. We're just going to clean an area. Yeah, that one's already nicked. Maybe you can get a ground there. So we're just going to tack the rails in place, and if they do have to be moved later, they can just cut the tacks off and reposition. But we need to be able to lift the roll set up to get the machine mount pads off. The jam nuts are keeping the feet from going up far enough to let us sit perfectly down onto the rails. So. So they're pulling all the feet off, pulling the jam nuts off, because the jam nuts are in the way for us to screw those feet up high enough to get the dyno down low enough. So for future jobs, these front roll sets, those jam nuts need to be taken off at production and put the feet back on, but screw them all the way up. Saves us time when we're doing installation. Okay, so the pit floor isn't exactly level, so what we're doing is we're raising the V-rail. Before you break that loose, you might want to mark it on the floor just so you know to get it right back in the same spot.
Yeah, we're going to have a problem with welding that. Well, we're going to have to weld
The plate?
We have to weld all three together.
Right.
And we need to get it like an angle grinder in there to kind of clean everything off. Yeah. I took mine home already. A little air.
So are you going to be able to get a shim in the middle anywhere?
Yeah, you get one right down here.
Because that rail's going to bow.
This is going to fit inside the middle. We're pushing it with the car. Let that mark in. Well, he's got it up. One little thing up. You know what in the middle they can?
So that side over there was just a little bit too low. The plate, the cover, was laying on the steel, and so when we were going to put the bolts in, there was about a 1/4 inch gap. We would have had to clamp down onto the frame. So now we're raising that side. This side was up about a 1/4 inch higher than that side. So takes a long time. Okay, so we're doing a bunch of shimming. One of the issues with shimming is we're going to have to weld the shim plates to the rails so that we can then weld to the weld plates in the ground. So just a matter of the pit not being perfectly flat, which is not uncommon. Okay, we're installing the rear roll set, and looks like everything's going good for them.
Go your way. Well, that. It's a little bit more back here.
We can bring the covers out, lay it on there.
Let's get this stuff off.
See, nothing between.
No. Now those front legs, I have no idea if they've got them set to the right height, so we'll be careful when we lower it down. Ken said the last time he did one of these jobs, they bent one of them and had a hell of a time finding long enough ones. Yeah, run them up a little and then we'll level it off.
You're praying this will hold it.
A little bit. You got the nuts, right?
Over here. I got 4 and 2.
He says the engineer that we used to have that was a mechanical engineer and was very interested in these products, he said keep the thing level. The reason is if you were going to do really high speed testing and you didn't have it level, your vehicle would want to tend to go to the side that's low. Okay. So if it's level, then the vehicle will stay, try to stay on the dyno, and that's more for a safety issue. So they had an issue at one of the sites where they were off by like an inch. And the choice was to just get some edging material. There's plenty of different kinds that you can find, and use some edging if you didn't want that gap there, and deal with it that way, as opposed to changing the pitch of the dyno. He said it was more important that the dyno be level.
Well, the other thing you could do is just drop the whole thing level and then put a shim under that side.
Yeah. I think,
That's for a small gap.
pretty small, and I think from a standpoint of what it will take to just fill that, that's probably the better solution, easier solution.
Okay. Come on down.
So we screwed up the front legs because we weren't sure about their height. We'll screw them down after we get the eddy current inside bolted in. You got a good rigging crew here. You gave them enough time. You gave them enough time, they'd have this whole job done today.
Yeah, right there. Suck it in. In a little bit. Hold that.
You're going to lose your bolt. Few too many hands in the way, but they're putting the universal joint onto the eddy current module. This is probably one of the harder parts of doing the installation. If you got enough guys, though, it actually isn't that bad. But you got to have quite a few guys in order to maneuver all this to get this job done.
Hard if we can help you in the future anywhere around here.
They're good guys. They're doing a good job.
That's good to hear. Don't say it too loud. Don't every chance they get. Now, this will be the second one we did. We did a bus dyno, but it was a single piece.
Yeah. Less complicated.
Probably, yeah. Probably. Well, not nearly this nice. I would have thought it would have been a bigger, heavier duty system. But unfortunately, the first time we put it in, whoever made the pit didn't make the pit square. It didn't fit. It kind of just wedged.
Yeah.
So we got to do that.
Yeah, depth of the pit's number one thing, and then the second thing is squareness.
Squareness, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was okay. It was a little trapezoid, but it did this number.
Yeah.
Concrete got a little way from it. You know, pity.
Okay, so we're welding in the front panel, and when you install that, you need to level it out. We have the front cover panel here, and what we did was we bolted it on temporarily so that we could make sure that the height of our front platform was correct, and it is. And you'll note on this front panel that the high side goes up on top on those bolts, and then the low side drops down. And now that it's welded two-piece panel, it's much better design than the folded one, and it works pretty good. So this is how far we are today. 1 day in on the job. We've got cabling ran. We have the umbilical cord. Unfortunately, the umbilical cord is a little bit short. If we'd have had another 2 feet, it would have been perfect, but what we're going to do is probably cut down the stand. Stand is going to be smaller, shorter, so that they can just use the existing cable. Otherwise, they'd have to buy a much longer cable, costs a lot of money. Their electrician's been in. He's looked at the box down there, and he's going to come back maybe tomorrow and add wiring. If not, that'll be done later, probably next week. I strung the cable to the wheelbase actuator and the front load cell. I think we're going to be okay. Once we can extend it, I'll know if this cable to the wheelbase actuator is too short or not. The one cord that goes for the power for the wheelbase actuator, stringing that, I'm not too sure. I don't always like having cables lay on floors. I mean, that cable's more than capable of handling any kind of durability issues or water if it was on the floor, but I'd much prefer it be off the floor, so once they're able to extend the wheelbase forward, I'll know how much length I have, where I can tie it in. We have the back panels in place but not fully secured. We can put the front panel or the center panel on once we calibrate. We're going to leave the side panel or the center panels off until the electrical guy is done with his work. Gives him more access and more light to work in there.